Thank you, everyone. Welcome back to the Comics Cube. We are live with Jay Ignacio.
Yeah, rock and roll.
Jay, best known in the comics industry as the very last collaborator of the great Alex Nino.
Yup.
He's not dead, he's just retired.
Ayaw na niya mag-comics.
Ayun na yung mag-comics.
Gusto niya, i-commission mo siya mag-drawing ng art.
Sige. And Jay, before we start talking about comics, as we know, you're one of the founders of Spit Manila.
Yes, founding member.
New choice.
Now? New choice. Banana cake.
Okay. So Jay is very used to improv because he's one of the founders of the leading improv company in the Philippines. And let me ask you something. Yung yes and type of mentality. What's when collaborating with the legendary Alex Nino?
Definitely. Kasi the condition he gave me was to not give him a script, but instead give him a synopsis. So that means there's so much room there for visual interpretation on his part. 100% autonomy siya on the visual interpretation. So he definitely would see things differently from the way I did. And that's exactly what happened. So I knew from the beginning that I would have to adjust to his interpretation. So ganun din. I offer him my synopsis. He gives me back a drawing. And then I have to adjust to whatever. I have to say yes. And then adjust to what he gave me. And there was a whole lot of that going on.
Pero Jay, this is just me, I think that if I were writing my first comic book script and it was being drawn by a legend like Alex Nino, I would just do what he tells me to do. Diba?
Well, the great thing about Alex is that Alex is a generous artist. He gives you room to play around even with the pages. They're actually modular. If I think that what's supposed to be on page 2 looks better on 5, he says, pwede mong paglaruan yan, i-reshuffle mo yan. So pati binigyan niya ng room.
Alam mo, there's an American artist who works that way, and his name is Bill Sienkiewicz.
The great Bill Sienkiewicz. Yep.
Very, very similar, very experimental, very avant-garde. Very, very popular and legendary. Okay. It's appropriate that I'm asking you about Alex Nino.
Okay.
Wow. Sorry, there is a live dramatic reading of the bride happening on stage right now. So Jay, it's appropriate I'm asking you about the legendary Alex Nino.
Okay.
You just released a documentary. You screened it last night called Comics with a K.
Yeah.
Because that's how you spell comics in the Philippines. It's with a K. Tell me about the process of developing that documentary. Over about 10 years?
Well, so 2013, I was in San Diego Comic Con discussing the state of things with Will Sportacio. And he said, there's so many Pinoys involved in the comics and animation worlds. Like, even the Pinoys in Pixar, they call themselves the Pixnoys. I'm like, totoo ba yan? So I said, baka I can make a documentary about it. And yun na nangyari. It became a 12-year immersion because on my part, at that time, I was oblivious to the local comic scene. So the film is actually my journey into comics. The people I met, the people I had access to, the people I became a fan of, and people I eventually became friends with. So, makikita mo yung yung kung bakit si ganun yung in-interview ko, bakit si ganyan.
Jay, you can't talk about the history of Filipino comics, especially modern Filipino comics, talking about the late Jerry Alandilan.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What's that? Can you walk me through yung what was it like going through his interviews, his
Well,
editing it, etc.
when you mean editing him in the film?
Yeah.
So the very first interview I did for the film in 2013 was with Jerry. And at that time, that was the first time I met him when I drove to his house in San Pablo. So we weren't close. He was, in fact, I felt he was very wary of me. But still he was generous because nag-show and tell siya ng classic comics. Yung collection niya, yung personal collection niya, which are, you'll see in the film. And he gave me a proper history lesson on, our, ano yung tawag na, the pillars of Filipino comics. So, Alfredo Alcala, Escoredondo, Coaching. And I happened to meet Alex Nino before I met Jerry. So when I mentioned Alex Nino to him, he kind of eased up on me. Because it turned out to be a huge Alex Nino fan.
Let me took the club.
So anyway, over time, became good friends with him. Whenever I would receive original art from Alex Nino, because the first collaboration with him was this a short story called The Merchant of Oltrarno that I self-published, and I commissioned Alex to do 12 paintings for it.
And the book's layout was done by Carla Chalumse.
Right. So yun, when I received the original drawings, I went to visit Jerry to show to him. So syempre happy siya, di ba? And
That
then,
is a good looking book, Joe.
thank you. So the same thing happened with Alandal when I brought home all the artwork. Sabi ko, pare, gusto mo makita? O sige, punta ka dito. So I brought the artwork to him and of course he was super excited.
Who else would you say is a pivotal part of your documentary?
Definitely Wills for Tasha. That's another guy who was generous with his time and resources.
This is very generous with
Oh.
Yeah.
Definitely Wills. Another pivotal.
You can't tell the story of Filipino comics without Wilson because he's the bridge
Oh,
of those two generations,
and the two continents.
the two continents.
Oh,
Like he literally comics in the Philippines are not the same without Will Portasa. Period.
right.
Period.
Right. Well, he was the one who instigated the indie scene that gave birth to Alamat.
And
So
Alamat is what gave birth to the rest of it.
Alamat, it had its own strengths and its own scene that inspired others also. So, yeah.
And who else played a big part in the documentary?
Wow. Ang dami nila eh. One of the most difficult interviews to score. Okay. One really important resource person is Benjamin Leclerc, who is the DC Comics archivist. So I had that on my wish list to do an interview with Ben in the archives because he did a YouTube video of that and said, I want to do the same, but for my film. And it was, it almost didn't happen.
How did you score them?
Well, I have to admit, it's the Pinoy Mafia at work. Because Will Sportacio was good friends with one of the Pinoy executives at that time who was working in DC Comics. And that guy, I don't know if I should mention his name or maybe he wants to keep his privacy.
Maybe not.
But si Mr. Pinoy executive, so he was welcoming naman. Sabi niya, sige, come by the Burbank. They were in Burbank na. So, come visit the office. I'll introduce you to the guys. And we'll see what I can swing for you.
Okay.
So yun, the day I visited, it didn't happen. But the next day or 2 days later, he said, "Oh, pare, balik ka na rito. You got the interview."
And you have to bring your equipment and all of that.
Well, I know, because that's the way I shot both films. The Bladed Hand was shot with a camcorder and a set of mics
Okay.
by myself. And same thing for this one. I used a couple of different cameras and better mics this time, but still shooting it by myself.
Jay, you've been a fan of Filipino comics since 2013.
Ah.
So in those 12 years, what can you say about the evolution of the industry, the community?
So ito, in 10 years, what I saw is the tremendous growth of the indie comics scene. Wala na yung publishers of old. You'll see all those are all out of print. You'll see them on Facebook groups na lang na, "Oh, ito yung collection ko, ito yung scans." Whatever. There is the independent scene that really grew tremendously over the last 10, 12 years. And that's, of course, thanks to the likes of Comic-Con and Comic-Ep. And also, one thing that's crucial also is the fact that Comic-Ep decided to get into publishing.
Yes.
So it matters that they did that because it gave Comic-Ep the ability not just to publish a catalog, publish the titles in its catalog, but also to sell rights to these
To the international.
Yes. So naging international player si Comic-Ep. So game changer yung ginawa nila. And now we're also gaining government support because it's only in the last couple of years na the NBDB, the National Book Development Board, noticed the comics genre, and so they threw in their support. So what's happening is when all these book fairs abroad happen, and Philippine literature is being sold there, the rights to Philippine literature, yung comics ang nagli-lead sa number of rights sold. We've actually reached 60% of rights sold by comics. So that really matters. So we are experiencing a renaissance.
Can you, okay, medyo malalim na tanong. The thing about comic, the thing about Comic-Ep, as you mentioned, the strategy really is to go international.
Yeah.
Get translated, get people reading our stuff.
Yeah.
The problem, as I see it locally, is that most of the comics readers are in the urban cities.
Oh.
Manila, especially Manila. About.
Yeah.
How do we address that imbalance locally? If you have any ideas. Kasi obviously one of the biggest problems is distribution.
Yeah.
Etc. So it's hindi katulad ng dati na pwedeng 10 pesos na lang yung production yung cost mo.
Yeah.
Next.
Personally, I feel the future really has to be in digital books. We're way behind on that. But culturally, we seem to be averse to digital books. A lot of people I hear, ako when the Kindle came out, I embraced it. It was so convenient. I no longer had to lug around a lot of.
No, it definitely has its advantages. It's nice having a tablet.
Oh, of course, the best pa rin yung comics in print. Can't beat that. But it limits your distribution. And especially when you have comics events na talagang within that location lang, and people have to go there.
Yeah.
It's different. We now, through digital and social media, have the ability to actually reach out to our audiences. And I think that's a potential that is not yet maximized.
people continually ask me things like, is there still a future for comics, etc. And the thing that I keep saying is, dudes, everybody reads comics.
Oh.
Kasi if you're scrolling through Instagram, may makita kayo ng comic,
Hmm.
you're usually, a lot of the time, you're going to read it.
Yeah.
Diba? You're not gonna scroll, you're gonna read it. Because it's actually, oy, may pwedeng akong basahin din.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jay, what's the reaction to the film been like?
So far, I have not heard anything negative other than technical matters, which of course is there. It's but in terms of the content, um, the common denominator is first they're impressed that we actually have this kind of comics history.
It goes back a long way. Ian Velasquez was just here. So we talked about the 95 years of Kenkoy.
So yun, they're all surprised mostly about that we have this history and there's that legacy, but there's also that chasm.
The chasm
between the old style
and the new style.
and the new style that is disconnected from the old. There was no continuity.
Yes. Kasi nawala eh. And
Yeah.
then,
But it's also, I think, it's also a factor. What factors in that also is that when we had our golden age of comics, that was a period in which we had very limited forms of entertainment.
agree.
So comics was one of the most widely consumed. And it's inevitable that it will get so rampant na magiging rentable siya sa sari-sari stores.
And you can tell everyone back then had like some sort of classical fine arts training.
Yes. Well, some of them. The others had were self-taught.
Yes.
Oo.
Pero yung school of ano nila,
But they kind of had an almost cohesive
feel.
oo.
Except for Alex Nino.
Yeah, he's the ano talaga. He was the what do you call him? The
Outlier.
outlier, yeah. But yeah, so the reactions mostly have been first surprised about the fact na ano na may ganun pala tayong history, and inspired sila about what they saw na we can continue because it doesn't dwell on the past then.
Yeah.
There have been there's been so much discussion about the golden age, but I didn't dwell on that. I needed to take it to the present. So may mga interviews ako with the NBDB,
Okay.
and currently it's the comiqueras who are leading the pack
There's a lot of them right now.
in this renaissance. When I started filming this in 2013,
How many were there?
few.
And now
I already met Tepay then.
Yeah.
And si Sherry
Terry
Zamar.
Zamar, yeah.
Oh.
Terry.
And then
Joanna.
yun, si Joanna. Oh. And there were a few other cartoonists, mga SKP,
Yeah.
But the konting-konti. And that was my concern parang halfway through the film. Parang, pare, sausage party to. Bakit ganun? Where the females? And over time, lumakas ang representation.
It's not just the Filipino comics. We're right in front of the international, the ASEAN
Yes.
division, and Cherry Domingo, Erica, and
Yes.
and the Thailand.
Yeah. So
It's all like
I'm so thrilled to see them and also their works because they're such amazing horror writers too.
and that leads
Ang galing.
also to more women reading comics and attending these
Yes,
events.
definitely. So I'm very happy with the way. Maybe it was fate then, it took me that long to make this film. It took that long. First of all, urong-sulong ako dun sa project. Oh, I'm enthusiastic about it. Then maybe maybe I'll take a break from it. Yung ganon. It came in waves.
Yeah.
But I guess
COVID pa.
if I release this in 2015, it would be a completely different story.
It's different.
Yeah, because really, it's the females who make a difference in the present state of things.
We were just here earlier with
Patty.
with Patty.
Uh,
No, not there. Sorry, not Patty. No, with EK. I was here with EK.
CK, oh.
And EK said, but like there's two creators right now who make Filipino mechas. They're both women.
Yeah. There you go.
So it's not something that you would really expect. So Jay, my last question for you: Philippine International Comics Festival. People are coming in. Guys. This goes on until tomorrow, until 7 p.m. tomorrow. So you can come and get your tickets. Jay's having two screenings.
Yep.
One at 5:30 and one at 6:45 for his movie
Comics with a K.
at meeting room number
2.
at meeting room number 2. Yun.
Doon malapit sa CR.
I don't know. This is CEO. So my last question for you, Jay, is which people come here? Three. Just name three. Creators. Do you think they should watch out for? Matagal na silang hindi nagpapasalamat.
Wow. There's Yuri.
Yuri, who we just had on earlier
okay.
for Blight. Yes, Yuri Pinzon.
Right. So Yuri with her Blight. Ren Galeno. I'm a huge fan of Ren's work.
Who isn't?
Yeah. And then another chicken, and a third one.
So Ren Galeno, I was telling Jules, to Doc Jules.
No.
With Ren won the National Book Award. Ren's been translated to 6 languages. Ren has been nominated for a Pulitzer.
Yeah.
If she retired right now, she's set. Like her legacy is set. That's a career most people can only dream of.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree with Ren Galeno. And
a third would be sino kaya?
J. Ignacio, nalandal ba?
If you like historical fantasy, sige. Pwede. I call it historical fantasy because it's not really based on historical figures. It's historical circumstances, but the characters never existed.
I've actually been meaning to reread your book because ever since it came out, I started dating Minnie. Minnie's actually also. So I feel like mas ma-appreciate ko siya now.
Yeah.
So guys, we are at SM Mega Mall, Mega Trade Hall 2. PICOF is on until 7 p.m. tomorrow. Jay has 2 screenings, one at 5 o'clock and one at 6:45 p.m. For Comics with a K, learn more about the history of Filipino comics.
Oh, wait, can I add?
Yeah.
Yung third kong recommendation, Elmer ni Jerry Alangilan.
Yes, still. So you just recommended 2 people who make chicken comics.
Oo nga, no? Tapos yung isa, reprint.
Yung isa, reprint. Yeah. We like chickens in the group.
Oh, yeah. Lasang chicken.
So good. Thank you so much, Jay.
Thank you,
see you
Joey.
tomorrow. Good luck with the screenings.
Thank you.
And it was a pleasure to have you on as always.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Dewey.
I'm done, man.
Mapagod